Well, let's say that I'm a patrol sergeant. I come in at 7 o'clock. I got a brief on, I don't know, protective sweeps is the issue that's been coming up lately. So how would that work in practice? How would I kind of get that information to the troops?
So you're showing up at 7 o'clock. As late as 6:59, you could log into the briefing room.
That's me.
Find a training block on a topic that you want to train, and then you would automatically have all you have to do is print out the worksheet. You'll have the video available to you, so you can play the video. The worksheet gives you the questions that you can ask after the video plays, and then you'll have all the additional resources right there for you. So it takes less than a minute to be ready to hold training for your shift.
Nice. And you said these are like 90-second videos, so you're not going to watch some long, drawn-out, 20 minutes of PowerPoint and some, retired attorney probably standing up there for half an hour and putting everybody to sleep.
Yeah, I think we're all used to that.
Yeah.
It's designed to teach one simple concept during every briefing so that it just builds. You're just constantly giving them that little trickle of one simple concept. And it's easy for everybody to use. And another benefit is the whole agency gets the training. So a lot of times only 1 or 2 people might get sent to a training class that lasts 8 hours, and 7 hours and 45 minutes of it was a waste of time because you didn't really get much out of it. And the agency spent a lot of money on that with per diem, travel costs, overtime, the backfill. And the briefing room doesn't have any of that. The entire agency gets trained in the same information. It's led by the supervisors, so they can customize it to their agency as they see fit. And it's just because it's so simple, a supervisor really has no reason not to use it every day.
Excellent. So all of my listeners and followers on the channel, they kind of know my background as an attorney and why I'm so passionate about training police officers. Like, why is this guy obsessed with the law? Well, I'm an attorney representing officers and civil rights violations and stuff like that. I found that there's this huge hole where we're not training officers the law. Yep. And it sounds like that's probably legal is going to be a big topic as a part of this. Maybe give some of the viewers, listeners of the podcast, some of your background information, because right now you are a patrol sergeant, right?
I am. I've been a sworn deputy for 23 years now. Before that, I was an explorer at the sheriff's office. So I've been involved in law enforcement since 1996.
Fantastic.
And the majority of my career, I've worked courts, I've worked the jails, I've worked patrol, I've worked investigations, direct enforcement, all that kind of stuff. But my real passion has been around training. I've been involved with use of force my entire career. I've trained in defensive tactics my entire career. So I've taught defensive tactics, use of force, taser, driving, all those sorts of things. And I was full-time at the academy as a deputy, training and in-service training. And then when I promoted to sergeant, I was also the in-service supervisor for our regional training center. So that experience is where I really came to realize how deficient our training in law enforcement is. So I was somebody who spent my whole career around training, teaching, and getting into that position really opened my eyes because I started reading case law, and it scared me. It scared me because I taught use of force my whole career, and it turns out that the things that I was teaching, because it's what the state told me were the minimum standards, was not nearly enough for what I needed to know when I was on patrol. And it was really frightening. And then I would go to trainings with other in-service supervisors, and it turns out they didn't know anything more than I knew as well. So here we all are, held to the standards of what the courts say we must abide by, and we are the ones who are the least educated in those requirements, and it's really frightening.
Yes.
So the briefing room is designed to take us beyond minimum standards, because state minimum standards in every state are completely insufficient for meeting the needs of law enforcement, especially now, where we are now.
Right. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. You sound a lot like a guest that I had on the podcast, Scott Savage, who I think you're an acquaintance with. do you have a similar philosophy where it sounds like you do? We have deficiencies in training. We send officers to training. Sometimes it's taught. It's the free training, from someone from the DA's office that is they're busy getting ready for trial. They don't have time for this, and they're just reading off a PowerPoint. It's like, okay, check it off the box. We've had our yearly legal update, and no one remembers or takes anything from it. It sounds like your platform's designed to give it in small bits and pieces, so it's not just a big fire hose of death by PowerPoint coming at you.
Yeah, so Scott's a friend of mine. He's a mentor to me, and yes, we do have very similar philosophies. I've had exactly. You're in New Mexico. I'm in California. I have exactly the same experiences that you have with training, and so what you say about the attorneys doing the training is exactly my experience. As one example, when California's use of force law changed, was updated to the new Penal Code 835A, I sat through, I can't even tell you how many trainings I sat through with different, quote unquote experts or attorneys, and they were always wrong. They were always wrong. And the reason they were wrong is because they don't have a vested interest in being correct. I appreciate all of them. I really do. And I'm so thankful that they're all here and that they're pro law enforcement and they're here to help us figure this out. But there's nothing like your butt actually being on the line with these laws, and you being the one that faces politically motivated prosecutions if you get it wrong.
Right.
And because of that, I really believe that law enforcement needs to take a more active role in the things that we are learning and teaching each other, and making sure that we are correct and that we have authorities to back up what we're saying. It can't just be anymore, well, that's the way I was trained, or that's what the last guy told me, and you know what? The last guy learned it because the last guy taught him, and the last guy taught him, and nobody actually looked it up and said, is this really the truth, or have we just made this up?
Yeah. Something, a phrase that I've come to really that irritates me is, that's the way we've always done it. Man, I tell you what, when I was a DA starting out in around 2010, that's how I got involved with the training, is because I was the guy that had to go do the free training, and I became really passionate about it. But back in those early days, I was like, all right, guys, you got to have a basic understanding of this stuff. Make sure you understand this. Let's go over search and seizure. You got to have a pretty basic understanding. Everybody should know Terry v. Ohio. That is not the case anymore. Now, I stress that I think every officer that's out there today, whether or not it's the way you learned it or if you're brand new, you have to know the law just like the attorneys do. You have to really understand it at a whole different level, and not just the law, but there's a lot. You guys have so much to do. So I think that's important. Let me ask you this question just popped in my mind. What kind of topics, obviously you got legal topics, but what else does the briefing room cover? What else can that help the supervisors with?
For me, one of the biggest benefits of the briefing room is it's not just a static platform where we have training videos that we recorded a while back and they just sit there. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we add a new RISE training block based on whatever's happening in that time frame. So maybe a new case law comes out, maybe a use of force video is going viral, and so we will cover whatever it is with that is happening in the moment. So we break our training down into 5 different sections, which is preparing for the moment, controlling the scene, providing care, investigating after you do all of that, and then improving at the end of it. So that's a system that I have implemented for some time on my shift with my deputies. And the reason is because a lot of times, if you pay attention as a supervisor in the field, you'll see that your officers will sometimes move into the investigation phase of a call for service before they've controlled the scene. Or the scene goes out of control and they continue to investigate and ask questions. You can see this in video. Watch use of force videos. You'll see this happen all the time, where they forget to control the scene, or they forget to maintain control of the scene, or especially now officers feel intimidated to control the scene. They don't want to be too pushy, those sorts of things. Or they forget to provide care. or they don't investigate. So all of our training blocks are broken down into those sections. So we have some use of force. We have a lot of use of force videos. We have
Sure.
some first aid videos. We talk about controlling the scene, using triangulation, contact cover, just good basic tactics. Along with things some officers sometimes forget, like the hands in the pockets. It sounds so basic, but you see it all the time. They forget about it, or officers have their hands in their pockets,
Yeah.
or they stand flat-footed, or they stand real close to somebody. They try to calm somebody down by putting their hand on somebody's shoulder, and all they're doing is telegraphing that they're within striking range to somebody that wants to attack them. So our videos cover a wide range of topics. Being on patrol is a jack of all trades. It's not specializing in any one thing. It's really being a jack of all trades, and that's what our biggest benefit, I would say, is that we are all active duty law enforcement officers working today. So the things we cover are things that are happening today, things that we're experiencing today, and things that we know other officers are experiencing today as well.
Awesome. So as far as like the law goes, most states like California, they pretty much follow the Fourth Amendment, but the laws can be pretty nuanced. Like out here in New Mexico, we don't follow anything under the Fourth Amendment. It can be really crazy, but there's still kind of universal areas of the law. Where does like the legal basis come from? Is this sort of a nationwide thing that can apply to any police department? You kind of tailor it towards them, and then maybe check your local resources to see if your search and seizure in your state's a little different, and you kind of focus on those popular areas.
Yeah, so we're in California, so we cover California law, we cover the Ninth Circuit, and then we cover other circuits that have interesting cases. So our training does apply to agencies nationwide because the majority of stuff isn't necessarily legal things. It's basic things that all officers need to know, like tactics and that sort of stuff. However, from the legal aspect, all of our videos are reviewed by an attorney who's experienced in 1983 lawsuits. So, and we're all California post-certified instructors. So,
excellent.
We do have certain checks and balances for that. Certainly, the law is the most applicable to Ninth Circuit. However, we do cover several other circuits. Like the 11th Circuit just had a pretty good case come out the other day, showing that if you write a search warrant and it doesn't include all of the probable cause to justify an arrest, but an apathetic judge signs off on that search warrant, you can still be held liable if that arrest warrant did not include enough probable cause for a warrant. Isn't that interesting?
No good faith there, huh?
A lot of times we think that, well, judge signed off on it,
Yeah.
it must be good, but not necessarily.
Yeah, that's New Mexico, for example. They just say there's no good faith rule here. If you screw it up, it's on you, officer.
Yeah.
But the cool thing, if you are talking about Ninth Circuit law, if you're doing it right under the Ninth Circuit, you're probably doing it right everywhere else because they just have a different view of things in the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah, you want to open your eyes? Go watch some videos from the Ninth Circuit. They put all of their videos online of them debating cases, and it is insanity. It is truly will blow your mind watching them, and you will realize you do not want to leave your freedom or your house or even your agency's budget, right? Because usually you're going to be indemnified against a lawsuit, so your agency is going to pay a lot of money, or their insurance company is going to pay a lot of money, and they're going to pay it back in the back end. You do not want to leave that up to three strangers on a Ninth Circuit panel that who knows what their beliefs are. They're not following Graham Connor. They'll say they are, but 100% they're using hindsight. You'll see it.
Yeah.
You'll see it on the video. Reasonableness. You think reasonableness is what would another officer with the same or similar training experience do in the same or similar circumstances? Think again. There's no 100 officers that they will interview and find out what 99 of them would have done and hold you to that standard. It's what they think a reasonable officer would have done. So it's really what would three judges who with no law enforcement experience think that a reasonable officer would do. And that's a completely different standard than what you've been led to believe.
Right. So if you're in California or the Ninth Circuit, then your videos are going to focus on that and say, this is Graham v. Connor, but this Ninth Circuit case shows you that the judges may tend to look at hindsight is 2020, even though they're not supposed to, and they'll give the officers an example of, like, here's a case where we're going to have to really be careful when it comes to, some aspect of it, which is good. You got to know that, right?
Yeah, but I caution too. I think it's common for people to think, well, the Ninth Circuit is, ultra liberal and all these crazy decisions come out of there. But if you start reading case law, you'll see every circuit has some nutty decisions or things that we necessarily wouldn't think or agree with. And so it's not just the Ninth Circuit; it's everywhere. And we're seeing what we call nuclear payouts from juries now all over the country, which are these massive, massive payouts in tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in judgments, which is something that has changed recently, and it's everywhere. It's not
Right.
It's not just a California, New York, Oregon type thing. It's all over the country.
Yes. I, having come from the 1983 world and talking to insurance adjusters that are in that space, and it's a very small community, they're still, even though we've seen a lot of the walk back on, defund the police, we've seen it calm down a little bit, and a lot of politicians have walked back from that. But the insurance companies are still kind of on eggshells, thinking all it's going to take is just one bad incident that makes national news, and we're going to be right back there. And we're still seeing a ton of these lawsuits, which this is what I preach on this channel, and it blows my mind. I'll go to an agency that has maybe had a history of some lawsuits, and I'm like, all right, here's an in-depth search and seizure we can do, or whatever the legal issues are that you guys are facing. And it's like going to the doctor. It's like, we don't really have a problem with that right now until you do, and you got to pay them $1.2 million, and they don't, they don't want to pay the $2,500 for the training. You may run into that as you're pushing this stuff out there. How do you pitch this to agencies and say that this stuff isn't very sexy? Our agency's been lucky; we haven't been sued, so I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue, and the problem is municipalities have traditionally indemnified officers against lawsuits. So when an officer gets sued and then you hear them say, that's BS, they paid that guy $25,000 and, I didn't do anything wrong, and they are upset about it. What happened was the municipality indemnified them against that lawsuit and made the lawsuit go away. Or there was a judgment ultimately, and they were indemnified against that. But those have been smaller type judgments. But now that judgments are getting larger, and defense attorneys know that, and they know they have more bargaining power, insurance companies are having to decide how. It's just math, right? It's just math. How do they stay solvent when they're paying large judgments out for something that was completely avoidable, right?
Yeah.
Like knowing the public duty doctrine, when you can walk away and when you can't walk away. If the officers had just walked away, sure, they could have gone in, but they also could have walked away. If they had just walked away in a certain circumstance, it could have avoided a $4, $5, $10 million payout. And so as we start looking at this as law enforcement, agencies are going to have to decide, how are we going to limit our liability? And there's no better way to limit your liability than by making sure your officers understand what exactly is expected of them and what's not expected of them. And state minimum standards are not going to do it. They're just not.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's part of my work, contract work, when I work with a police agency as an advisor, I see, especially today, that a lot of officers are hesitant to do stuff, even if they can. They don't want to. I did a training where I'm like, how are you guys doing consensual encounters? And they all kind of looked at each other like, what? And they're like, we're not. We're just not even doing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's not necessarily a good thing either. And what I find is just a total lack of confidence. And I'm like, let me teach you the law. Know it. Understand it. And when you have that confidence, you'll know when you can do it or when it's the time to walk away and not do it. And you'll have that confidence to be able to do your job and do it correctly. Because that's what we want. We want you to be able to do your job, enforce the law, but not violate anybody's rights. And the training is what gets us there, right?
And you know who else has that same lack of confidence? Supervisors,
Yeah.
right? Because especially us, we came up 20 years ago in a very different world, right? You didn't have people shoving cameras in your face all the time, and you didn't have the internet taking what you did and chopping it up into little snippets that make it look like you did something wrong.
Right.
And so supervisors have to learn how to change as well. And in order to do that, agencies need to give them the tools in order to train their own officers in what is expected today. And again, as I keep going back to, state minimum standards are all about mediocrity.
Yes.
It's just meeting the bare minimum.
Right. Yes, like what I would call the Detroit Lions of training. Like, yeah, you'll win 2 games this year. I can say that. I'm from Michigan. I make fun of them all the time. So that's kind of what I think of it.
Yeah.
Are you guys having out your way the issue? One of the major issues affecting law enforcement out here is we have had extreme high turnover. A lot of people with experience like yourself that have taught and trained and our supervisors are leaving in droves, and we have someone with very little experience taking over in those supervisors' positions. And like you said, are we giving them the tools to be successful? Is that something you're seeing out your way?
Yeah, it's nationwide, and so every agency's struggling to fill those seats in the academy and getting new people in, and everybody's seeing their experience go out the door. And I think one of the ways that you stop that, and one of the ways that you improve morale, is to improve their confidence that they can be here. The officers actually do have a lot of power in society, and they have a lot of discretion about what they do and a lot of freedoms. And the other thing they have is a lot of support from the community. And we have to keep pushing that and help them understand this is what you can do and what you can't do. This law actually came out in 1986. It's been around all of our careers and nobody ever knew about it. So those types of things empower them to feel like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe it's not so bad, because it's not so bad. It just feels like that because our training hasn't changed in decades. Nobody's talking about increasing your training budget, and so those types of things, and you see all the scrutiny. Those types of things lead to a lack of confidence, and that lack of confidence leads to well, screw it, I'm out of here, or I'm not going to go my full 50 until I'm 50 or 55. I'm just going to leave early, and we can't have that. We need that experience to stay, and we need the officers that are coming up now to have that confidence that they can move forward.
Awesome. Fantastic. As we kind of wind it down, I'm gonna have you finish off and talk a little bit more about the briefing room and where they can access it. But just how you got to the briefing room based on your experience, we've kind of talked on it a little bit. But what are some things with your experience that you're seeing? Where do officers need to focus right now in this climate and with everything that's happened in the last few years? What should officers be doing? And maybe their agency doesn't have as much resources as another one. What can officers do? What areas do they need to focus on when it comes to training and being prepared for the job, at least maybe from your point of view with all of your experience?
Yeah, patrol is very complex. It deserves a lot more respect than it's given on many agencies. A lot of times we put a lot of reverence towards detectives or narcotics or those types of things, but patrol are really the ones that face the biggest dangers. They're going into unknown incidents in the heat of the moment, and they have to make decisions right now. They don't get to huddle. Sometimes they get to huddle up, but a lot of times you don't get to huddle up and decide how you're going to handle something. You're just in it, and it's also the most visible because they're in uniform and in a patrol car, and people are watching them all the time. So there's a lot to patrol. It's not just one singular thing. And so the most important areas to me are, 1, case law, and 2, officer safety tactics. Because once you control a scene, you can generally slow it down. And, in the investigative phase, you can generally slow it down and take your time and think about how to do something. But when it's controlling the scene, when something's out of control, when somebody's not listening to you or can't listen to you, those are the areas where we really, really need to focus. Some important things supervisors can do are one, transition drills,
Yeah.
which is taking your shift out into the parking lot, have them unload their weapons, and just call out a weapon, have them face a wall or something where it doesn't matter if something happens, and then just call out a weapon, a taser, and then a baton, and then a handgun, and have them transition between their weapons so that becomes smooth.
Yeah.
And then while they're doing that, giving warnings, tell who they are, what they want the person to do, and what's going to happen if they don't comply with what you tell them to do. So getting that mental framework in their mind is hugely important. So that's one important thing. Another important thing is just look up. If you don't have access to the briefing room, you can do this stuff yourself. Just look up case law in your area and go over a case law every shift. But they teach you a lot. They teach you a lot about laws that you didn't realize have been in play your whole career or just came into play. So those, to me, are some of the most important things that we can do today.
I want to point out to some of my listeners that you and viewers on YouTube, you said something that I think really shows your experience. Is you kept using the phrase control the scene, control the scene. Man, when I teach use of force or I look at reports, how often you see officers confuse the terms control and compliance, because if you look at Graham versus Connor and subsequent use of force case law, use of force may be objectively reasonable to control a scene, to control a suspect, but it's never valid for compliance. And just your choice of words sometimes and what you write in the report can mean the difference between you get named in the lawsuit or not. So your choice of words shows your experience in teaching.
Yeah, thanks.
Use of force.
I've sat on my agency's use of force review board for a long time now. I've probably reviewed well over 1,000 use of force incidents for my shift alone, and there's just commonalities among all agencies and all officers, and control is one of the things, just like you said, one of the things we mess up sometimes. And a lot of times, if we had just focused on control in the very beginning, teaching our officers when to act and when not to act, we could have stopped something that later on devolves into this horrific incident where it could have been controlled very early.
Yes, excellent. You have a wealth of knowledge. I'm probably gonna have to have you back on here just to cover some more topics.
I love it. Yeah.
As we kind of come down to the end here, how maybe you've taken all this career of all of your training experience, you've put it into the briefing room, and it's you've kind of recently launched this, is my understanding. Where can officers find out more information? Where can they go to take a look at it, and maybe give them a shout out of where they can find out more information about this?
Yeah, so they can go to thebriefingroom.com. We have a website there with a lot of videos, and they on there. We also have some free videos. So we have free videos for supervisors to learn how to limit the use of force or use of force liability on their shifts. Yeah. And then we have free videos for agencies like administrators and for insurance companies, risk pools, to help them understand how to mitigate use of force within their agency. So they can sign up for free videos there. We also have examples of our RISE training blocks on our website. Yeah. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I put a lot of free training on LinkedIn. I really enjoy being on LinkedIn and posting my training there. So connect with me, Jason Lewis, Louis, on LinkedIn. And I love meeting everybody and talking to everybody.
Yeah. Really quick, let me ask you, as someone who's kind of a small, training company where I'm a one-man show, I know how much time and effort it takes to record even a minute of, it sounds like you have put a ton of work into recording this. How much time has gone into making this a reality?
Nobody will ever believe how much time I have put into this. I would probably be, considered insane for the amount of time that I and my partners have put into it. Because it's not just me. You go on our website, you'll see a whole bunch of us. We have full patrol uniforms for the briefing room. We demonstrate. We don't teach technique, but we do teach philosophies. So we demonstrate everything we do on pavement in full uniform. Everything is legitimate, and that takes a lot of time, and doing it on a high end level where you have, modern recording equipment and understand the filmmaking and editing process, it's an enormous amount of work, but it's worth it. It's worth it because the job law enforcement officers do is a noble profession. It does not deserve the label that it has been given, but there are things that have been done by law enforcement officers that are not right, and so there's that balance there, right? And we can always be better in the things that we do, and so I view it as being worth it because this job is noble, and the officers deserve the very best, and that's what we're trying to provide, is the very best.
Yeah, you can tell that you're passionate about it, and that's when you know that you got someone that's going to give you good training. So, Jason, I really appreciate it. You gave a ton of value here. I think everyone that's listening to this can take a lot from it, and definitely check out the briefing room. The reason why I had you on here is because this is exactly the kind of thing that we need in the law enforcement profession to help us get the confidence back, be true professionals at this job. And like you said, it is a noble profession. That's why I sacrificed going down the road of suing officers, and I could be rich. I wouldn't have dogs barking.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
But here I am with my small little studio because I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
And it's a noble profession, I've worked with law enforcement my entire career. You've done it your whole career. You're getting this stuff out there. Everybody should check it out. And that's all I'm going to say, because people are going to start turning this off because we're over 30 minutes into this. So, Jason, thank you so much. Everybody go to thebriefingroom.com. And if you need some search and seizure training, you can go to my website at policelegaltraining.com, and we'll get you taken care of. So, Jason, thanks again. And everybody watching and listening, make sure you sign up, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Until next time, stay safe. Remember, every battle is won before it's fought. We'll see you in the next episode.